I've come to the Trossachs and I've come to Loch Arklet. So there's a lot of history around Loch Arklet and I'll explain that as we go along. I've got a wee surprise with the weather. I left the house when it was about 21 degrees. It's about 15 degrees here. I'm glad I brought a cardigan and a coat because it's absolutely freezing. So I did think, because I left the house and it was sunny, that the loch may have been calm. So it's quite choppy because there's quite a bit of wind, which I'm not complaining about because that absolutely keeps the midges away. But what I might do is try some long exposure shots and we'll see if we can smoothen out the water. So join me tonight and let's see where the journey takes us. What I thought I'd planned to do was, I didn't actually think it would be this windy. I was going to walk round the edge of the loch and see if there was any kind of rocks and boulders lying in the loch that I could potentially use as leading lines and that foreground interest. So when I shoot down west of the loch, then it might prove interesting. However, the wind's quite strong, so it could be a challenge for the camera, and for a long exposure it could be tricky. But let's try it. We've got a bit of bog to navigate, but let's reconnect over there. Right, so I'm going to try and attempt this. I'm putting in my cable release because I've put my polarizer on first. For what I'm just looking through my viewfinder. I think I'll put the 10 stop on. Right, so I haven't used this before. I've got the Lee Filters app. So I've got my camera set at if I set this at 1/8 of a second, and then what I'll do is I'll put the shutter on for 2 minutes. This does oh, that didn't work. Let's try that. Right, so this time. So here's our tip and here's a lesson to learn. I was more focused on using the app to work out the settings for the big stopper. I forgot to put the camera into bulb mode. So the camera was still in manual. And the only way that I'm going to set the timer to over 30 seconds is if I put it in bulb mode. So there you are, there's a lesson to be learned. Me faffing about with this app. So I'll wait here for 2 minutes. The Big Stopper app has actually got a timer built in. So the only problem is my phone's susceptible to cold and then it will kill the battery, so we'll just have to wait and see. And the mountains that you can see at the end of the loch are called the Arklet Alps. So the sun is peeking through some of the clouds, so there's some nice light on the top of the Arklet Alps. And what I'll do is there's a lot of rocks around this area. So what I'll try and do is I'll use a couple as a leading line, and then what we'll do is we'll move away from this area and we'll walk round to the other side of the loch. So Loch Arklet is also quite famous because you've probably heard of Rob Roy McGregor, our cattle rustler, folk hero. So halfway down the loch on the right hand side there is where Rob Roy McGregor got married. So I've set up a new composition where I'm getting that rock there on its own. There's a little rock just in front of it, and then I've got the Arklet Alps in the background. I've set up the exposure for 4 minutes, so I'll have to wait. So the other thing I'm doing is, and I'll cut in between so you don't have to wait 4 minutes each time I take a photo, as I'm taking an underexposed shot for the sky, and then I'm using my big stopper and I'm doing a 4 minute long exposure at f16 and ISO 50. And then what I'll do is I'll bring the sky and a long exposure together. I'm also taking shots where I haven't smoothed out the water, but to be fair, the couple that I've seen look quite nice. Obviously I won't really know until I get home and I put them on the computer. But the other thing I'm starting to notice is, a little while ago the sun was coming through the clouds on the Arklet Alps, but now the sun's starting to come round the mountains at the side of the loch, so that might help, and it might give us a wee bit of interest in post-processing. I've moved to the edge, and what I'm going to do now is I'm going to use this big rock and that small rock in front of it as a kind of leading line into that cluster of trees with the mountain in the background. So I've set up my composition again. I'm going to set this at bulb mode. I'm just double checking. I've got f16 and I've got ISO 50, and I'm just setting up the big stopper. I had it at 1/4 of a second, so that gives me 4 minutes. And then with the magic of editing, you won't need to wait 4 minutes, you'll get to see the end result. I have to admit, I'm struggling tonight. This is quite challenging. I've got really high winds and I'm trying to do long exposure shots. I've no idea if these are actually working or not. They look quite clear in the back of the camera, but I really hope they're going to work out, because it's quite a lot of effort and quite a lot of waiting. So you can tell I haven't done a lot of long exposure shots recently, but here's hoping that goes. When that long exposure shot is completed, I'll then take the filter off and I'll take another shot of the trees. And then what I'll do is I'll merge the trees in, because with a long exposure you'll see the trees waving and they'll all be streaky and out of focus. So I'll bring those two together. Alright, so I've spotted a little tree here. Now I'm going to have to be careful, because what I want to try and do is catch the tree without any motion. So I'll have to increase the shutter speed, which means I'm going to increase my ISO to about 200. I'm going to increase the shutter speed to about 250. I've got my depth of field at f5.6. I'm just going to up the ISO and I'll try that and see how that works. And if I check the image, zoom in, yep, I've got a sharp tree. So as I've been walking around, there's a wee dark pool, a peat pool here, and there's a tree, but the reflection of the tree's in the water. So what I'm doing is I'm just adjusting the polarizer. I'm focusing in on that tree. I'm going to do a bracket exposure here. Let me try that shot. And that could, or it might, turn out to be not a bad wee shot. Okay, so I've seen that big rock here. It's really nice sweeping out to the Arklet Alps. We've really lost the light, so I'll need to put the long exposure timer on for at least 4 minutes. And what I'll do is, I'll take a shot of here, and then I'll take a separate shot of the clouds, and then I'll bring the two together. But I'm just going to test this out. I've already pressed the shutter speed just to save us some time. And I'm hoping that actually turns out, because it's got really, really dark. There might be another nice composition from over there where I can look back out to the water. If I take my filters off, there's a potential nice shot of this rock with the little trees growing out of it. So yeah, there's still quite a few to be had on this side before I start to work my way back over. Right, so I've taken a shot of there's a wee tree growing off that big rock there. But what I'm trying to do here is, I'm trying to get the trees in the shot, and then just these 2-3 rocks on my left hand side. So I'm just setting up for a 4-minute exposure. Just using my timer. And there we go. And then what I'll do is I'll show you the image when it's completed. I've got a funny feeling I could be getting rained off in a wee minute. I can feel the spits of rain coming in. So where I am, I'm actually at the east end of the loch. In the west end of the loch there's a dam, a Loch Arklet dam, and that flows down into Loch Lomond. At the east end they built a tunnel. And as part of the Loch Arklet viaduct project way back in the 1880s, they decided to build and increase the height of the water within Loch Arklet so it could fill Loch Arklet, because the city of Glasgow's population was growing and it needed more and more water. So at the time, in the mid-1900s, Loch Arklet, Loch Arklet fed the city of Glasgow with water. So what I'm going to do is, this is the tunnel. So I'm taking a photograph of the tunnel from here, and then what I'll do is I'll work my way around. I can see a hole, so I walk towards the hole, and I don't know if there'll be a photograph there, but we'll have a look. But what I'm doing is I'm focusing in on the tunnel building. I've got a 15th of a second f/16 ISO 400. What I might do is a small exposure compensation, because I've actually got the clouds above the mountain. And before I go, I might swing the camera around and take a shot down the west side of the loch, and I'll see if we've got an image here, because it's quite of the Arklet Alps. Only because if it rains, then we'll have to kind of call it a day. So I'll take that shot again, and we should have quite a moody, overcast set of Arklet Alps. Right, so now what I'll do is I'll walk over to the tunnel, the water tunnel, and then we'll see what we can see from there. So this is the tunnel. as part of the Loch Arklet viaduct project that was built between 1909 and 1915. And as you can see, it lets the water come in from Loch Arklet. It flows through a tunnel all the way right through to Loch Arklet. So what I'll do is I'll just take some shots here. There's a shot of a winch, so I'm going to take a couple of shots of the winch. And I've got a 40th of a second f/16 and ISO 320. Now what I'll do is I'm going to have a wee nose and see if my camera's probably a wee bit too high. So I'm going to see if I can get a semi close-up shot of the water. Let's see if this will work. I'll try to see how far out I can go before I get obstructed with the bars, the railings of the bars here. Right, so I've probably reached that limit now. So what I can do is I'll increase the ISO. I'll reduce the f-stop to f8. Reduce my ISO down to 160. I'm going to focus in where the water's coming in from Loch Arklet. I'll take my shot. I might have to, yeah, it's too much. So I'm going to have to speed up my shutter speed. So I'll probably make that a 60th of a second. And I'll see how that goes. Yeah, that's better. I might try that at a 50th. And just see. I can feel the beads and the spits of rain here. So what I'll do is I'll work my way around. There's ladders here, obviously you're not allowed to go down. You definitely don't want to go down. There's some turrets all the way around. Obviously it must be overflow for the water. But what I'll do is I'll look for interesting close-ups. The wrought ironwork has got some kind of roses embedded in them, so that might make some nice macro type shots. But yeah, and then we've got all the gearing over there for the winch. So let's see, we'll keep walking round. Right, so I've got this rose in front of me. I can't actually quite, I'm going to zoom in and I'll see if I can increase the ISO just so I can see it to get it in focus. I'll just double check. Alright, I've got that in focus. So the ISO's up at 800. Might lower the ISO just a bit. I've got ISO 800, f8, sorry, the ISO 640, f8 and a 50th of a second. And that might be quite nice. So if I just turn my tripod round this way, and then, because what I want to do is get some of the railings in as part of a leading line going back the way. I'm going to have to refocus in on that railing because there's some cool rusty spots. The rain's coming down. I'll just keep wiping the rails until the rain beats me out. I'll just try to see if there's any other interesting shots here. There's the chains. Now what we'll do is we'll just wander further round. Right, I'm just going to hand hold this so you can see where the water goes down into the tunnel. And when you look at this, what a feat of engineering that was built in the early 1900s. It's absolutely incredible. So what I'll do is I'll see if I can take a couple of shots in this area and then we'll wander round outside and go to the other side of the tunnel, but I've got a funny feeling the rain might be, so I am actually in a race because I'm just checking the lenses for rain spots. So I'm going to try and get a quick shot here. I've actually got a brolly, but it's in the van. So I'll take this shot quite quickly. Now what I'll do is I'll zoom out. I've got to watch for this grid because this grid, the tripod feet go through it. So I'm just going to zoom in on this gearing or winch and just see if I can get a different perspective of it. I'll just take another I'll just focus in on the nut. Take my shot. Right, so the rain's coming this way. That's a shame. So we'll walk round. So as the rain comes down, I'm going to try and get a wide angle shot of the tunnel. And what I might do is a quick exposure bracket. I'm just going to check the lens. Yep, it's okay. It's just that it's starting to get quite heavy splodges of rain actually. And the Alps look quite nice, but the rain's actually coming this way. So I'll set that. I've nipped round to the other side. Whoa, this stuff's lethal, it's like quicksand. And what I've got to keep doing is, because of this rain, I've got to keep cleaning the lens, and it's not very much fun to be honest. So this will probably be my last shot because I can feel it getting heavier and heavier. So what I'll do is I'll come out of this because this does feel like quicksand, and I'll move back onto the shore. So in the event this is our last photo because of the weather, I hope you enjoyed that video tonight. It's been something completely different for me. I have to admit that the long exposure photography actually kind of broke my flow a bit, and it actually takes a lot longer than I expected to get set up, to compensate for skies, to make sure, because it was so windy and so heavy wind, that all the trees that I was trying to photograph were moving around. So it was then setting up a separate exposure to take photographs of the trees so I could get them still with a faster shutter speed, and then I can blend them later on. So yes, the high winds, the dull weather is not what I was expecting, because I left the house and it was beautiful. So I hope you enjoyed it. Let's try and make the most out of the images that I've captured tonight. If you do like it, please give it a thumbs up. If you haven't subscribed, please do, it is free. And if you press the bell notification, that'll notify you the next time I post a video. So thank you, and here's to the next video.